Abraham's hand trembles, not from age, though he's 100 years past what most would call old, not from weakness. He's carried the wood, built the altar, bound his son. The trembling comes from somewhere deeper, from a place where faith and horror collide. Isaac lies on the altar. His eyes are open. He knows. He must know. The firewood is arranged beneath him. The knife is raised. 3 days ago, God spoke a command that made no sense. Now Abraham stands at the edge of obedience to something impossible. One cut, one motion, and the promise dies with the boy. Behind him, down the mountain, 2 servants wait. They don't know, can't know. Abraham told them, "The boy and I will worship, and we will come back to you." Future tense, both of us. But how? How can both return when God commanded one to die? The knife reaches its highest point. Abraham's arm tenses. This is it. The moment when everything, 125 years of promises, decades of waiting, a century of faith, ends or continues. There is no middle ground. Then a voice tears through the silence. This is the climax of Abraham's story, but it's not where it begins. Act 1. The Call from Nowhere. When God spoke to a pagan. Circa 2000 BCE, the city of Ur in Mesopotamia glows with civilization, one of the greatest cities of the ancient world, capital of the Chaldean Empire. Ziggurats rise 70 feet into the sky, topped with temples to the moon god Sin. Thousands live here, thrive here, worship here. Among them, a man named Abram, son of Terah, husband to Sarai, childless, ordinary, pagan. The text is blunt about this. Your fathers lived beyond the Euphrates, Terah, the father of Abraham and of Nahor, and they served other gods. Abraham didn't grow up believing in the one true God. He grew up bowing to idols, to statues, to lies carved from stone. Then God spoke. Leave your country, your people, and your father's household, and go to the land I will show you. Notice what God doesn't say. He doesn't say where, doesn't give coordinates, doesn't provide a map, just a land I will show you. Direction general, destination unknown, details none. God offers a promise instead of a plan. I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless you. I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and whoever curses you, I will curse, and all peoples on earth will be blessed through you. Abram is 70 years old. He has no children. His wife is barren, and God promises to make him a great nation. It makes no sense, but Abram begins packing. Act 2. The Long Journey. Following a voice across 1,000 miles. Terah, Abram's father, leads the family north from Ur. They follow the Euphrates River 600 miles to a city called Haran. Beautiful country, mountains, rich soil, good farmland, trade routes, prosperity. They settle. Years pass. Terah dies at age 205. Now Abram is 75. Time to move. Time to obey. God speaks again. Go to the land I will show you. Abram takes his wife Sarai, his nephew Lot, all their possessions, all their servants, all their livestock. They head southwest, across 400 more miles, into Canaan, into the unknown. Think about this. No GPS, no hotels, no restaurants, no roads, just faith and footsteps across hostile territory. Abram is wealthy. Scripture mentions his silver, gold, flocks, herds, tents, servants. Moving this household isn't simple. It's a massive undertaking. They reach Shechem in Canaan. Abram builds an altar. God appears and says, "To your offspring I will give this land." There's a problem. The Canaanites already live there. The land is occupied. God promises land that belongs to someone else. But Abram builds another altar, worships, waits. Then famine strikes, severe famine. The promised land can't feed them. Abram makes a choice. Go to Egypt, where food exists. It's the first crack in his faith. God said go to Canaan. Abram goes to Egypt instead. And it gets worse. Act 3. The Failure. When fear trumped faith. Abram and Sarai approach Egypt. Sarai is beautiful. Abram is afraid. He tells her, "Say you're my sister, not my wife. If they know you're my wife, they'll kill me to have you." Technically, she is his half-sister, same father, different mother, but she's also his wife. Abram tells the truth in a way that creates a lie. Pharaoh hears about this beautiful woman, takes her into his household, gives Abram gifts, sheep, cattle, donkeys, camels, servants. Abram gets rich off his wife's lie. Then God strikes Pharaoh's household with diseases. Pharaoh figures it out, calls Abram in. "What have you done to me? Why didn't you tell me she was my wife? Take her and go." Abram leaves Egypt wealthier, but humiliated. The man called by God had lied to save himself. He returns to Canaan, back to the altar near Bethel, back to the place where he first worshiped, back to square one. This is what makes Abraham's story real. He's not a plaster saint. He's a man who hears God and obeys, then gets scared and lies. He's us. Act 4. The Impossible Promise. Counting stars in the dark. Years pass. Abram is now 85. Still no son. He and Lot separate. Too many flocks, too many herds, too much conflict. Lot chooses the fertile Jordan Valley. Abram stays in Canaan. God speaks again. "Look around. All this land, as far as you can see, I'm giving to your offspring." Abram asks the question that's been burning for 15 years. "Sovereign Lord, what can you give me since I remain childless?" God takes him outside. "Look up at the sky and count the stars, if indeed you can count them. So shall your offspring be." And here comes one of the most important verses in all Scripture. Abram believed the Lord, and he credited it to him as righteousness. Belief. Not perfect obedience, not perfect performance. Belief. Abram simply took God at his word, despite all evidence to the contrary, and God counted it as righteousness. But then the waiting continues, and waiting breaks people.
Act 5. The Substitute. When patience runs out. Abram is 85. Sarai is 75. 10 years have passed since God's promise. No pregnancy, no son, no hope. Sarai makes a suggestion. "The Lord has kept me from having children. Go, sleep with my slave Hagar. Perhaps I can build a family through her." This was culturally acceptable. Ancient Near Eastern law codes allowed it. But God never said to do it. This is human effort trying to fulfill divine promise. It's faith giving way to pragmatism. Abram agrees. He's 86 now. Hagar becomes pregnant. Tension erupts. Hagar despises Sarai. Sarai mistreats Hagar. Hagar flees into the desert. An angel finds her by a spring, tells her to return, tells her she'll bear a son. Call him Ishmael, the angel says. God has heard your misery. Ishmael is born. Abram finally has a son. Problem solved, right? Wrong. Act 6. The Covenant and the Laugh. When God insists on the impossible. 13 years pass. Abram is 99 years old. Ishmael is 13. God appears again. I am God Almighty. Walk before me faithfully and be blameless. I will confirm my covenant between me and you. Then God changes his name. Abram, exalted father, becomes Abraham, father of many nations. Sarai becomes Sarah, both meaning princess, but now with divine confirmation. God says, I will bless her and will surely give you a son by her. Abraham falls face down, and he laughs. At 99 years old, facing a 90-year-old wife, he laughs at the absurdity. Will a son be born to a man 100 years old? Will Sarah bear a child at 90? He suggests a compromise. If only Ishmael might live under your blessing. God says, no. Your wife Sarah will bear you a son, and you will call him Isaac. I will establish my covenant with him. Isaac means he laughs. The child of promise will be named after his father's incredulous response. God also promises Ishmael will become a great nation, 12 princes, a multitude. But the covenant, the promise, runs through Isaac. Act 7. The birth that changed everything. When impossibility became reality. 3 visitors arrive at Abram's tent. Abram shows hospitality. They eat. Then one asks, "Where is your wife Sarah?" "There, in the tent," Abram answers. The visitor says, "I will surely return to you about this time next year, and Sarah your wife will have a son." Sarah is listening at the tent entrance. She laughs to herself. "After I am worn out and my Lord is old, will I now have this pleasure?" God confronts her laughter. Is anything too hard for the Lord? Sarah denies laughing. She's afraid. But the promise stands. 1 year later, Abram is 100 years old. Sarah is 90. She gives birth to a son. They name him Isaac. Sarah says, "God has brought me laughter, and everyone who hears about this will laugh with me." The impossible happened. The promise came true. But joy doesn't last long. Act 8. The expulsion. When one son must go. Isaac grows. At his weaning celebration, Sarah sees Ishmael, now a teenager about 14 years old, mocking Isaac. Sarah demands, "Get rid of that slave woman and her son, for that woman's son will never share in the inheritance with my son Isaac." Abram is distressed. Ishmael is his son too, flesh of his flesh. 14 years of fatherhood. Now exile? God tells Abram, "Listen to whatever Sarah tells you, because it is through Isaac that your offspring shall be reckoned. I will make the son of the slave into a nation also, because he is your offspring." Early the next morning, Abram gives Hagar some food and a skin of water, sends them away, into the desert of Beersheba. Mother and son wander. The water runs out. Hagar puts the boy under a bush and walks away, unable to watch him die. An angel calls from heaven, "Do not be afraid. I will make him into a great nation." God opens her eyes. A well appears. They survive. Ishmael grows up in the desert, becomes an archer, fathers 12 sons who become the Arab peoples. 2 sons, 2 nations, 1 promise, 1 exile. Act 9. The test. when God asks for everything. Years pass. Isaac grows into a young man. Tradition says he's 37, the same age his mother Sarah was when Abraham first left Haran. Life is good. The promise is fulfilled. The heir is alive. Then God speaks. Abraham, here I am. Take your son, your only son, whom you love, Isaac, and go to the region of Moriah. Sacrifice him there as a burnt offering on a mountain I will show you. Read that again. God asks Abraham to kill the promise, to sacrifice the son he provided, to destroy the hope he created. It's not just cruel, it's contradictory. How can the promise continue through Isaac if Isaac dies? Abraham could have argued, could have refused, could have said, God, this makes no sense. You said through Isaac my offspring would come. Now you want me to kill him? He doesn't. Early the next morning, Abraham got up and loaded his donkey. The journey takes 3 days, 3 days to think, to doubt, to change his mind. He doesn't. On the 3rd day he sees the place, tells his servants, stay here with the donkey while I and the boy go over there. We will worship, and then we will come back to you. We, future tense, both. Abraham somehow believes both will return. Isaac carries the wood. Abraham carries the fire and the knife. Isaac asks, Father, where is the lamb for the burnt offering? Abraham answers, God himself will provide the lamb for the burnt offering, my son. They arrive. Abraham builds an altar, arranges the wood, binds Isaac, lays him on the altar, reaches for the knife. Abraham, Abraham, here I am. Do not lay a hand on the boy. Do not do anything to him. Now I know that you fear God, because you have not withheld from me your son, your only son. Abraham looks up. A ram is caught in the thicket by its horns. He sacrifices it instead of Isaac. Names the place Jehovah-Jireh, the Lord will provide. The angel speaks again. I swear by myself, declares the Lord, that because you have done this and have not withheld from me your son, your only son, I will surely bless you and make your descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky and as the sand on the seashore. Your descendants will take possession of the cities of their enemies, and through your offspring all nations on earth will be blessed because you have obeyed me. Act 10. The end of Sarah. When promise makers die. Sarah dies at age 127 in Hebron. Abraham mourns her. Then he does something significant. He purchases a burial site. He buys the cave of Machpelah from Ephron the Hittite for 400 shekels of silver. It's the first piece of the Promised Land Abraham actually owns, not through conquest, not through gift, but through legal purchase, a burial cave. Sarah is buried there. Later, Abraham will be buried there, then Isaac and Rebekah, then Jacob and Leah. It becomes the family tomb, the one piece of Canaan they possess. Abraham lives 75 years after Sarah's death. He remarries a woman named Keturah, who bears him 6 more sons. But Isaac remains the heir, the one through whom the promise flows. Epilogue. The father who died trusting. 175 years of faith. Abraham dies at age 175. His sons Isaac and Ishmael bury him in the cave of Machpelah beside Sarah. The 2 half-brothers, separated by Sarah's jealousy, reunited at their father's grave. Abraham lived 175 years. He walked with God for 100 of them, from age 75 when he left Haran
to 175 when he died. A century of faith, a century of promises, a century of waiting. He never saw most of what God promised. He owned only a burial cave in Canaan. His descendants didn't number like stars or sand. He didn't see them possess the land. He didn't see all nations blessed through his offspring. But he believed anyway. Hebrews 11 says, "By faith, Abraham, when called to go to a place he would later receive as his inheritance, obeyed and went, even though he did not know where he was going. By faith, he made his home in the promised land like a stranger in a foreign country. By faith, Abraham, even though he was past age, and Sarah certainly was barren, was enabled to become a father, because he considered him faithful who had made the promise." Think about what Abraham's faith produced. From him came Isaac. From Isaac came Jacob. From Jacob came the 12 tribes of Israel. From Israel came the prophets. From Israel came the Messiah. From the Messiah came salvation for all nations. Every Jew traces their lineage to Abraham. Every Christian claims him as father of faith. Every Muslim reveres him as a friend of God. 3 major world religions, billions of people across millennia, all look back to one man who heard God's voice in Ur and said yes. The knife that trembled over Isaac on Mount Moriah didn't fall because God provided a substitute. Centuries later, on a mountain near the same location, another father would sacrifice another son. But this time, no angel would call out, no ram would appear. The knife would fall, the son would die. Jesus Christ, the ultimate fulfillment of God's promise to Abraham, "Through your offspring all nations will be blessed," would be sacrificed on Calvary so that Abraham's faith could be credited to everyone who believes. Abraham never saw it, but he believed it. "Your father Abraham rejoiced at the thought of seeing my day," Jesus said. He saw it and was glad. Remember the opening. Abraham standing on Mount Moriah, knife raised, faith and horror colliding. That moment reveals everything about what it means to trust God when nothing makes sense. Abraham didn't have explanations, didn't have guarantees, didn't have certainty about outcomes. He had a voice, a promise, a choice. He chose to believe the voice. He chose to trust the promise, even when it meant raising the knife over everything he loved. And God called him friend. Not because he was perfect. He lied twice about Sarah. He slept with Hagar out of impatience. He laughed at God's promise. He was flawed, human, broken. But when God spoke, Abraham listened. When God promised, Abraham believed. When God tested, Abraham obeyed. 175 years later, as his sons lowered him into the cave beside Sarah, they buried a man who changed history by simply believing God was trustworthy. The promise he never fully saw came true. The land he never possessed was given to his descendants. The blessing he never witnessed has reached billions. The offspring he barely imagined includes you, reading this now, part of the spiritual children of Abraham, children not of his body, but of his faith. That's the power of one person saying yes to God. That's the legacy of one man leaving everything familiar for something promised. That's what happens when faith trembles but obeys anyway. Abraham left Ur 4,000 years ago. He's been dead for nearly as long. But his story still breathes, still challenges, still asks, will you believe God even when it makes no sense? Will you obey even when you can't see the outcome? Will you trust the promise even when the knife is raised? The Father of nations never saw most of what God promised, but he saw enough. He believed enough. He obeyed enough, and God called it righteousness.